Here's a news update on the AM radio vote. It has been blocked in the Senate right now. This is the bill that was forcing automakers to keep AM radio in your car. And now is the time to contact your elected representatives and tell them you want them to pass the Save AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. This is also known as other names as Save AM Radio. You've probably heard a lot of public service announcements, but I am shocked that lawmakers from all sides have not passed this obvious bill into law. Now, Senator Ted Cruz requested a unanimous consent decision for the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, and it was blocked by Senator Rand Paul, who said the mandate would be an overstep from congressional power. This sets up AM radio legislation for a traditional Senate vote. When it comes to Capitol Hill and their political maneuvering, getting legislation to pass unanimous consent is not an everyday feat. Even when both majority leaders are on board for this bill to be approved, but thankfully, the bill is far from dead. Some DC insiders believe this would not deliver the result that we wanted, and Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican of Texas, is a key supporter of the act. He took it to the Senate floor and requested a very rare unanimous consent vote on S for Senate 1669. That's S 1669. Legislation that requires the Department of Transportation to issue a rule that requires all new motor vehicles manufactured and sold in the United States to have devices that can access AM broadcast signals and stations installed as standard equipment with no additional charge. Now, since its May 17th introduction by Senator Ed Markey, a Democrat from Massachusetts, some 43 co-sponsors have put their name on the bill, with Democrats Jack Reed of Rhode Island and Robert Casey Jr. of Pennsylvania joining the Republicans, John Hoeven of North Dakota and Chuck Grassley of Iowa in signing the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Those senators became co-sponsors on November 29th. As Cruz's camp sees it, the bill, which was approved by the Senate Commerce Committee earlier this year, was on the verge of Senate passage before being objected by Senator Rand Paul, a Republican of Kentucky. This objection puts the act into typical Senate queue of taking the bill to the floor, opening it up for amendments, and then holding a vote that would either approve the legislation, incorporate it into an omnibus bill, or let it linger, wither, and die. And we cannot let this bill die. The latter option is highly unlikely, thank goodness, as Rand Paul wants to tinker with the legislation rather than squash it. As reported by Streamline Publishing's Radio Inc., Paul is seeking to add his own modification to the bill to end the electric vehicle subsidies under the American Vehicle Tax Credit in lieu of mandating AM radio remaining in standard features, safety features in all vehicles manufactured and sold in the U.S. as a safety feature. I like that idea, but I'm not sure that's going to pass as it stands. The AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act would, if passed, also direct the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, known as NHTSA, to issue a rule that requires automakers to maintain AM broadcast radio in their vehicles without a separate or additional payment, fee, or surcharge beyond the base price of the device itself. That would be very helpful to anyone looking to purchase a vehicle. Furthermore, the act requires any automaker that sells vehicles without access to AM broadcast radio before the effective date of the NHTSA regulation to clearly disclose to consumers that this vehicle lacks access to AM broadcast radio. That might impact the resale, and it might not. Given the unlikely pairing of Cruz and Markey, getting the act across the finish line is highly likely. I don't recall another bill where we have joined forces, said Cruz, and it speaks to the power of the issue that we see such deep agreement across political party lines. Cruz also slammed the auto companies that moved to remove AM radio to simply doing it for the reason beyond technology. He stated, and quote, "I believe these automakers stood up to remove AM radio as part of a broader pattern we see in censoring views that are disfavored by big business," close quote. Cruz commented, in quote, "I believe these automakers stood up to remove AM radio as part of a broader pattern we see in censoring views that are disfavored by big business." Cruz also remarked, "I think this is consistent with what big tech has done, silencing views they disagree with, and so this bill is all about preserving consumer choice, letting consumers decide. If you don't want to listen to AM radio, turn it off. But you know what? If the automakers all come together and say, you can't turn it on because we're not going to put it in your car, we're not going to put it in your truck, you don't have the right to choose what you listen to," close quote. Cruz concluded with, "I think that's profoundly harmful for our country and profoundly harmful for free speech. And so I hope this body can actually act in support of Americans in harm's way in a disaster to support farmers and ranchers who rely on AM radio, and in support of diversity of views, speaking online in support of free speech for whatever your views, whether they're right-wing, left-wing, or no wings at all. AM radio lets people speak and make the case in John Stuart Mill's marketplace of ideas." There's more to the argument to keep AM radio. When Tesla and BMW announced they were dropping AM tuners from their new electric vehicles because of electromagnetic interference, many people in the radio industry began looking for a political solution that would keep aging technology alive. Initially, Ford announced plans to discontinue offerings of AM radios in its internal combustion engines and their electric vehicles. Well, since then, and your pushback, Ford has since postponed those plans. Thank you to your push to let them know that you want it. The National Association of Farm Broadcasters, NAFB, based in Missouri, supports the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act because AM radio is still the best way to reach people in times of emergency, said Tom Brand, the Associate's executive director. And quote, "The emergency broadcast system is a primary reason for our support," Brand said. "We feel that it's important for everyone, no matter what zip code they live in, to have access to emergency information from weather to a message that could come from Washington, D.C." Close quote. One of the places where there are regular consumers to AM radio is in their vehicles. As Brand sees it, AM radio keeps people informed about weather disasters, which can also be important from a safety standpoint. But removing AM radio is a serious issue, especially for local talk radio, local weather, local favorite sports games, and news. And many people rely on free radio communication that is critical to their lives. Is there a reason to remove talk radio? Maybe this is a devious plan, or some car makers cutting costs, or is there more to it? What do you think? If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. If you have any questions or comments, because I'm sure you will, I'll be more than happy to answer and get into that conversation. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee. The link is in the description, plus all the links for websites, social media, the book, and the podcast. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.